Now, as we were saying before, there are some actions that you can perform, as I was just showing you, within object mode or edit mode. Pressing A selects all. But the problem is within object mode, if you have more than one object, it will select all of the objects, all of the assets. You can see over here on the right-hand side under collection, all of them were selected. That is one difference. When you move into edit mode, you will be editing just a particular object or set of objects that you've joined together. So in this case, if I've selected my icosphere right here, I can move into edit mode. And now if I hit A to select all, it'll just select all of the vertices or edges or faces or the entire object within that edit mode that I've gone into. We're going to tab back out of edit mode just a moment. There are actions though that you can perform outside of edit mode within object mode. So I'm going to select this. I can grab the object. I can move it around. I can scale it. I can rotate it, whatever I would like. The G key is for grab. You can move it everywhere by pressing G. Notice I'm on a frontal orthographic view on the X axis. That allows me to move things in proportion to that axis. What does that mean? Well, let's see this. If I were to move it off to the side here, notice it's still lined up with my Y axis. Okay? That means because of this, it's even across the Y axis. Now, if I were to press G right now, I could move this everywhere. Okay, it's not on a particular axis. But what happens now? If I pan the view, you'll see that it's not even, right? It's off of the x-axis. It's off of the y-axis. Also moved it further down on the z-axis. So that's a problem. You want to make sure that the view that you're on is the correct view because it will change the way that the object is moved if you're grabbing it. We mentioned the G for grab, correct? We mentioned S for scale. So you can scale that accordingly using the S button, the S key. R for rotate, makes perfect sense, right? And you can rotate it according to the way that you would like. And you can do even more profound edits within edit mode. So let's go ahead and tab into edit mode. So let's say, for example, you do not want to move the entire object. You just want to move a portion of the object. You can select it right here, press G. You can grab that vertice, move that out, left click to keep it there. Whatever you would like to do, you can do it. Okay. Now, you'll notice it moved it according to the axis that we're on. Right? So once again, keep that in mind. The view does make a difference. You can scale now certain areas as opposed to just the object. So you can drag and select and scale parts of the object. And you can rotate just a portion of the object. I'm sure you can imagine how useful this could be. Up here at the top left, under edit mode, you're going to see three areas that are extremely important. You're going to see the vertice, or excuse me, I should say the vertex or vertices. You're going to see the edge mode and face mode. Now you can tell what we select here changes what we're selecting in the object. The vertex are these little vertices right here. You can select those individually if you just want to select a vertex. You can select the edge, which is the line of the object, or you can select the face. Now, how does this look in wireframe? Let's switch to wireframe mode. It may look complicated and confusing, but it really is not that bad. If you select vertices, you can now select a vertex. Same as the other mode, except now you can see through it. Okay. There are some benefits to both of these modes. I'll give you an example. Right now we're under wireframe mode. If you were to drag over all of these vertices, notice in wireframe mode, you can select every single one of them, even the ones that are behind the object that you're looking at from this particular view. Switch to solid mode, select everything. What happened? It only selected what you were viewing. So that's just one big caveat with the modes, the shading modes that you select. So keep that in mind. It does make a difference. If you're trying to select through an object to get everything in that length of that selection you've made, move it into wireframe mode will make your life a lot easier. Same thing can be applied to edges or faces. Now, let's say, for example, you are in the vertex mode and you want to select more than one vertex. You want to select multiple vertices. Hold in Shift, not Control. Many programs use Control. Hold in Shift, select the next one and the next one. What just happened? We selected 3 vertices, but more than that happened. When we selected those 3 vertices, it selected the entire face of that object. Notice that face is now highlighted. An easier way of doing that, if you're trying to select the entire face, would be to go into the select mode for faces and just select that face. Easy peasy, right? So there are some upsides to selecting these specific modes. And if you're looking to extrude just one edge, you can do that. What does that look like now when we switch back to the solid? Looks kind of awkward, right? But you can do that. You can select that particular edge and just extrude that. E is extrude. So if you're pressing E on an object, extremely useful within edit mode. If you wanted to extrude a face, you can extrude it. And what happens? Automatically, it extrudes at the angle that it's facing. So it extruded out at that angle. Okay. Now we talked about scaling the object and scaling parts of the object. Let's say, for example, you wanted to shrink the end of this extruded edge, this face. It's already selected. You can now hit S for scale. Scale it down. If you really want to scale it into a point, you could really scale it into a point by zooming in. And we just made a sharp point on that extruded face. You can do many things like that. There's also another trick. So let's go ahead and undo all of this. Maybe we want to extrude or scale or rotate or grab according to a particular axis. You will be using this feature a lot. So a nice way of learning this is to get used to extruding along an axis. And let's just select all. We're still in edit mode. Hit grab. Now, if you hit grab, you can move it around, right? But if you hit G for grab and then Z for the Z axis, you'll see the blue line lit up. Now it will only grab and be moved along that axis. Pretty useful. We can do the same thing with the Y axis. Or X, but according to our view, you're not going to see it really move, right? Let's change the view. X axis. Okay. The way that we did that was G and then the particular axis you were wanting to move along. This is very useful. Why? Let's say that we are wanting to extrude something out. Now let's say that you want to extrude it out again, but along a particular axis. You can do that. So it's very useful. Now notice it's along the axis because of our view and the way that we extruded this first face. It's at an angle. So that's extremely useful to do. You can take this a step further. Let's say you only wanted to go so far and you want each side to be accurate. There is an easier way of doing this, but for the sake of learning, I'll show you this method. So we want to extrude. So we're pressing E, and we're along the Z axis already. Okay, so we want it to be straight up. What I did there was, instead of it being at the particular angle that it came out as, I pressed Z again and then Z one more time, and it made it go straight up along the Z axis as opposed to its specific angle. So I'm extruding out, I press Z a couple times, and now I can press a number. So let's say, for example, I want it to only be extruded out a couple blocks. I can hit 2, and it'll automatically adjust that to 2 lengths of the blocks. So you see that? 1, 2. Okay, according to where it's at here. So let's say I want to do that over here. I can extrude out, press Y. I'm now along the Y axis. And let's say I want 10. That's 10 lengths. So very useful. So you can extrude, grab, scale, rotate, say the axis that you want to do that on, and then of course the length or the amount that you would like to scale that or rotate that, or extrude, grab, all the above according to that amount. Let's undo that. Next thing I'd like for you to be aware of is creating new meshes. So let's tab out. If you were to create a new mesh when you're in edit mode, tabbing back in just for a moment, it will make it part of the same object. Although it could be separate, it will still be part of that object. It'll be joined together. So if you do not want it joined together, most likely I'd recommend against that right away. Tab out. Make sure you're in object mode. Hit Shift A, like we mentioned earlier. And now you can select the mesh or curve, surface, whatever you would like to create, text even. So let's say we want a cube. There's our cube. So Shift A allows you to create new meshes. Let's undo the cube. Last but not least, you have the toolbar to the left. Notice your toolbar is pretty limited right now because you are in object mode. So you can adjust the object, you can rotate it, scale it, all kinds of things like we were doing with our shortcuts earlier. The difference is you do not have to use these if you know the shortcut. So scale, remember, is S, so we can select the object, scale it, whatever we would like, rotate. Now, notice when you tab into edit mode, the toolbar changes. You have many more options. You can bevel, you can inset the faces, you can extrude like we were doing earlier, you can apply loop cuts, you can use the knife tool to cut more edges or vertices. And some of these have like a little arrow at the bottom right. You can click and hold on those and have other options on how you would like to manipulate that particular feature. Okay. Scale, same thing. And you can change your cursor, your selection box. So if you want a lasso, if you're used to using a lasso, you can use that. It's a little awkward, I feel, in Blender, but it works. Or you can go back to just where you were initially. Okay, the select box. So that's it. Those are the basics. We went through what Blender is, how to navigate the UI, the movement, the actions, and now you may ask, where should I start? Well, take time to practice what we've went over. Become comfortable with the UI, the controls, how to perform some of the actions. And I also recommend watching tutorials. It helped me out tremendously to watch tutorials. It was the quickest way to learn, and the best way to learn anything, as you know, is to be immersed. So just jump in, start watching, and perform the tutorials. Don't simply watch them. The brain reacts better when you practice what you're being taught. So make sure you follow along and do exactly as shown in tutorials. I will go ahead and list a few of those that I found useful under the description of this video. And they may seem time consuming because you may find a tutorial that's only 10 minutes long, but it could take you 2 hours to do the tutorial because you're still learning. You're fresh at it. So don't let that intimidate you or discourage you. Slow down the playback speed of the video. Pause several times in between to follow along. Whatever you need, there's little tricks there that you can utilize, and you can learn Blender quickly by doing so. It really depends on what you put into it. You're only limited to your imagination. So that's it. Go ahead, get out there, start doing some tutorials. Hope this helped, and please list any comments or questions down below, and I'd be happy to answer them. Have a great day.